Chief Zibolski, is it too easy to get a gun in America?
For the criminals, it is, yeah. And even for when you talk about mental health,
but there's a price that people who want one legally have to pay for that.
Sure.
I mean, it may take longer time. You say for the criminals, how do you distinguish them when they're at the counter at Shields saying, "I want one of those"?
Well, the background checks that they go through are part
easy.
of that. They're easy, but the background check process works. I mean, they catch a lot in the background process.
Fargo's police chief, Dave Zibolski, is talking over how we deal with some of the issues you're seeing playing out each and every night on the news. And that's long-term treatment options. That's some of the mental health issues. And, you know, a lot of what's said here doesn't always make you popular with everyone in the city. When you talk about the lack of help, but he did it. Chief Zibolski, good to have you on News and Views.
Thanks, Joel. Good to be here.
Describe to people what your comments were.
I think just in terms of the mental health issue that we've got, and it's not just unique to Fargo, but it's certainly where our focus is. And our cops do an outstanding job dealing with people who have mental health issues, some of them very extreme. And we've been for some time continuing to deal with a core group of people continually. So this is a lot of calls. This is a lot of hours. And there's really no options for the officers. There's no long-term treatment facility for these folks. And we spend an awful lot of time, as do some of our initial public health folks with these folks, basically like the definition of insanity. We do the same thing every day and hoping for a different outcome, but in essence, there is no other outcome. They're not getting the treatment they need. We are spending an inordinate, enormous amount of time and resources on this particular issue. And law enforcement, I think, and even public health need help with this. We need that third piece of the pie.
How do you fix it, though? I mean, you're talking about professional people trained to do a specific job. And I know that you talk to other police chiefs across the nation. How have they fixed it? Where do they sit in comparison to a city like Fargo?
All the colleagues that I've talked to, no one's really fixed this. I think this has been a long-standing issue since deinstitutionalization in the late 80s. Over the course of my career, from that time forward, myself, my colleagues, we have seen the mental health crisis exacerbate. And over that amount of time, and more so recently as well, much of that burden falls to law enforcement to deal with, and people don't see this on a daily basis. They don't have any understanding of the really enormous job, an excellent job our cops are doing with de-escalation and the crisis intervention techniques that they learn. But the bottom line is some of these mental health conditions are so extreme and so chronic. You know, de-escalation is sometimes luck, and when we have a bad day, the police are in the spotlight of that, and I think that is not only unfair, but we're sitting here asking for help, and we need legislators and elected people to step up and do something about this. And I think there's an extreme reticence to creating in-house facilities since deinstitutionalization. But the harsh reality is there are some people that cannot function on their own in society. We are continually dealing with them, and they're not getting the resources that they need either. So this isn't a good scenario for anyone. This is something that we need to get the right people in the room and come up with the solution. I can't tell you what the solution is, but I know that we need help with the medical and treatment facility personnel.
So you talk about deinstitutionalization. Basically what you're saying to me there is we got away from sending people to Jamestown.
Right.
And we're finding ways, whether it's shared housing here, whether it is local here, and that's not working. That's what you're telling me.
Correct.
Okay. You say you don't know how to fix it. What you're really saying, or what I'm hearing anyway, is that you believe they belong in Jamestown.
Well, or in a medium facility in between, right? And so the other thing is this. Jamestown, I don't think, is a solution because not only are they limited, but I think if you talk to professionals, if you have someone that's trying to treat a mental health condition, they really need something in the region they live. We have a vast amount of population in this Fargo area. Why don't we have a facility where people can be in that facility but still be near family, friends, and support mechanisms, which are likely equally as important as the treatment itself?
What if I told you that my belief is a big part of the problem that you have right now, as that you develop even a more local plan, is just the professional staff to do it. That you can't find the psychologists. You can't find the people that want to do what you're asking for here.
Yeah, I don't know that. I know that we certainly don't have the facilities, and there just doesn't seem to be much interest in doing that, building the facility, putting that together. So, that's for, I think, other people to review and consider. I think if you created it, I'll tell you what, I've had outreach from 3 different doctors and psychotherapists in our community since I did this presentation. All 3 of them are interested in participating and trying to come up with a solution to this problem. So I really think there are people out there that would be interested in doing this.
We showed a study once, and we've had it on News and Views here about Western North Dakota. A lot of people listening to you right now in Western North Dakota, and the availability of any of these services wasn't just rare, it was non-existent. Right. And so, it's a problem where, yes, I think certain things are happening. They're falling between the cracks, and certain individuals belong institutionalized. But I don't know how you do it if you don't have people professional enough to deal with it. And so my point is, do you go back to college? Do you sit there and say, look, we'll pay for your education. I need years from you. I don't know how you fix the professional side of this.
Well, I think first there has to be a commitment to doing it. I think it's fixable. There isn't anything that we don't have people with enough brain power and knowledge. Look at people from the community that have already stepped up with an interest. They have to have a support. You need facilities. You need probably funding. And again, this is just an area that it hasn't even been discussed substantively. So, whether or not we'd have people to do it, I optimistically think that we would.
There's 2 other things I want to talk to you about before you have to leave the studio here. Number one, I want to talk to you about the crime numbers in Fargo, because I think that's indicative of a lot of other communities. I also want to talk to you about, the training your men and women have in relation to what we saw happen in Nashville. But the situation in Nashville really ties into, to some degree, what we're talking about right now, does it not?
Right. Yeah. There's a mental health component in a lot of these particular active shooter situations, a variety of levels and things going on with many of these that you study. And yeah.
So let's get back to that in a second. In terms of overall crime in the community, what are you seeing?
Well, we've got a 7% reduction across the board, which is really outstanding. And we haven't been able to say that in a long time.
Why? No, but why do we have 7% reduction? Give me your take.
I would credit the work of our department and the work of our community as partners in reducing crime. We've taken a much more enhanced focus on our crime problem. We've done a lot of changes within our organization and continue to do so. So I think that with the community is a big part of it. But it's 1 year reduction doesn't mean that we've solved all those problems, and we want to keep working and keeping those numbers going in that direction.
What change did you make that you think is showing returns already?
Sure. Well, a couple of things, actually. We really broadened our intelligence analysis platform. And the other piece is that we started reporting all of our crime. We had a period of time where if someone didn't want us to file a report, even though a crime occurred, we didn't file it. Well, what that does is it doesn't allow you to connect other crimes. And it doesn't allow me to, identify someone who might have been involved in an unreported crime that just did a new crime. So we changed that immediately early in 2021. We brought on our intelligence and analysis unit in full steam in 2022 to not only analyze and identify patterns, but to take all this information as a regional hub as well. And so that's been a big piece. That information that's pushed out to the cops, not only on wanted suspects, but people involved in these string of crimes. Perfect example, that burglary suspect that was arrested a few months ago. Our IAU identified the pattern of the behavior where they broke into the business, did some things with computers, and there was some video. They put it together. Sure enough, we were able to identify and arrest this individual, and he actually was wanted on the East Coast for other stuff as well. So again, I think that's an important part. The other thing has been an enhanced focus on our investigations and really focusing on our violent crimes, especially sexual assault, armed robberies, shootings, shots fired, and really getting the full girth of our investigative branch focused in that direction. We are implementing right now case management, solvability factors, so that we don't spend time on cases that don't have solvability, and we focus on that we can solve. And continue to grow in that area as well, and just the organization of our staff. So a lot of things actually have occurred in the last 2 years.
What about more people on patrol?
Yeah, we definitely need that, and that's also.
I remember you sitting in that chair talking about how you needed more men and women in a higher profile on patrol.
Absolutely do. And if you look at our strategic plan, our goal is to get a sworn staffing level of 1.6 per thousand. We're currently at about 1.4, but we do need more boots on the ground. We also need more people in our investigative area. And so as the department grows with the city, we need to add those positions and be able to take on that work. We've put in place a whole new academy program where we now hire the people up front as police recruits. We get them on board early, get them steeped into the organization, and we've got a group graduating April 14th. They'll go right to training on the street. We have another class starting May 15th, so we've established a system now that we can have a regular influx of new bodies, which will also allow us to accomplish that strategic goal and add authorized strength.
But what happened in Nashville, the professionalism that law enforcement gave going in to take that active shooter down, I mean, are you ready for something like that? Because it's my belief it's going to happen here in the upper Midwest as well.
Sure. Well, I think you definitely have to be prepared for that no matter where you are. Outstanding job by the cops in Nashville. Is our department ready? Yes, they are. And we are continuing to add equipment for them for their protection. That's actually been ordered some months ago, but also to enhance training. Just Monday, we were discussing the training with the school district on active shooter, just to up that training and make sure that all of our personnel have been trained in those philosophies. But we have received alert training. That's one of the core courses that's out there. We're very engaged with our school district and working with them so they know what to expect, how they should react, and what our officers would do in response.
So this goes back to the mental health issue in some ways, but how do you stop it before it happens?
Well, reporting. And in a lot of the instances, if you look at, and there's been some failures, obviously, even on the law enforcement side, if you look at Uvalde, but a lot of the instances are information that is known, not reported to the police, where kids are Facebooking or social media and talking about committing these kinds of acts. And as a result, in some instances, those events have been thwarted. So, I mean, there's a lot of examples out there of that. It's really important for parents to pay attention and to take some of this stuff seriously and to contact the school districts for sure, to contact and make sure that they're liaisoning with the police and so that there's a reasonable evaluation of whether or not an individual, a kid, is a threat. Sometimes this is kids acting out. Sometimes it's legitimate, but you really have to take a look at it to be sure.
Chief Zibolski, is it too easy to get a gun in America?
For the criminals, it is, yeah. And even when you talk about mental health,
but there's a price that people who want one legally have to pay for that.
Sure.
I mean, it may take longer time. Right? I may not get to shoot 30 rounds off at a rifle range, just pop, 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 right?
Yeah.
But you say for the criminals, how do you distinguish them when they're at the counter at Shields saying, I want one of those?
Well, the background checks that they go through are part
easy.
of that. They're easy, but the background check process works. I mean, they catch a lot in the background process. You've got guns that are now the big piece is straw purchasing. Legitimate person, I'll assume you're legitimate, right? You go in and buy a gun for your family member, right? Yeah, guns, exactly. Right? Your family member who might be a convicted felon. And then after you purchase it, you give it to them. And I think if you talk to even the ATF, that is the biggest way that, other than burglaries and things of that nature, that folks who shouldn't have guns are getting guns. And then there's this whole mental health piece, because the law right now disallows someone who's been officially committed to a mental health facility. That, again, is a small portion of people. But look at, even when we talk about the mental health calls that we're going on and people with these chronic issues, I think there's a piece there that needs to be enhanced in terms of the gun background as well.
I think any conversation about it that doesn't include professional law enforcement is a complete waste of time. Mm-hmm. And I think law enforcement is going to have the courage to tick off a couple constituents when it comes to guns. And you will have to tick them off. It's going to happen here.